Tonight, the cost of living crisis. Food producers say they're still struggling to balance the books, despite inflation dropping as fuel costs fall.
Price rises for food are still close to their highest in 40 years. Also making the headlines, the power battle between Holyrood and Westminster. The Prime Minister is accused of trying to stoke a culture war against trans people.
People power. Campaigners occupy flats in Glasgow's Maryhill area to try to stop their homes being demolished.
And in sport, it's a big night in the Premiership. I'll be live from Rugby Park ahead of Kilmarnock against Rangers, and we've got reporters at Celtic Park and Tynecastle.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Price rises slowed for a second month in a row in December, but remain close to their highest level in more than 40 years. The rate of inflation fell to 10.5% at the end of last year, driven by a drop in the cost of petrol and diesel.
However, there is little respite for households, with the cost of food reaching its highest level in more than 45 years. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie has been speaking to businesses having to deal with sharp increases in their bills.
Pressure on some businesses has reached boiling point. Production costs at this brewery have risen by almost a third in the past year.
We have had increases in cardboard, in paper for the labels. We've had the aluminium cans going up in cost. CO2 has went through the roof. Our fuel, we have a driver who delivers direct to pubs. The fuel cost has gone through the roof. And malt, this year the malt has gone really high. To stand still, make the same products we're making last year, this year, and not do any more sales, we're talking additional costs of about £120,000. It's a huge amount to find.
The rate of price rises fell to 10.5% in the year to December, down from 10.7% the previous month.
This is the second consecutive month that inflation has fallen, a sign that the cost of living crisis may slowly be starting to ease. But it does still remain stubbornly high, more than 5 times the Bank of England's target of 2%. And it's unlikely to bring any immediate relief for household budgets.
While petrol and diesel costs eased last month, food inflation reached its highest level since 1977.
There are so many price rises across every sector, every part of our business, from energy, fuel, right through.
Milk, eggs and sugar have all seen big cost increases, along with other ingredients for this bakery.
Things like potato flake, 43% in the last couple of weeks. Over the last year, oil, fat, margarine, that kind of price for cakes and what have you, that's probably going up about 80% over the piece. And things like flour, 40%. So they're not small rises, and we have to react to them as quickly as we possibly can.
Businesses are also concerned about UK government support being scaled back from April.
Energy has probably increased with the current rebate, probably about 300% to 400% for most businesses, which is already an almost intolerable amount. So we really do need to see some of those energy costs coming down for businesses, or we fear some of them will just choose to close the doors.
Despite inflation falling, there are warnings it may not be enough to prevent a further rise in interest rates next month. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
The Prime Minister was accused of trying to stoke a culture war against trans people today as he faced questions from MPs. Rishi Sunak defended his decision to block a Scottish law which would make it easier for people to change their gender.
The SNP's Westminster leader said this was a dangerous moment for devolution, but the Prime Minister says it's about protecting UK-wide legislation. Well, live now to our Westminster editor, Catherine Sampson. And Catherine, the row continues.
Yes, look, it was inevitable, I think, this would come up today after the Scottish Secretary took that unprecedented step earlier this week to block those gender recognition reforms that were passed by Holyrood. Now, Stephen Flynn, who is the SNP's Westminster leader, really accused the Conservatives of ignoring, disregarding, he said, Scotland's views on a range of issues, including this one. He said that created a slippery slope from devolution towards direct rule. Now, that's a strong claim, something strongly denied by the Prime Minister, who insists he's acting within the remit of devolution, within the remit of the Scotland Act, and he's acting, he says, to protect the safety of women and girls. Here's a flavour of their exchanges in the Chamber earlier.
This is the Conservative Party seeking to stoke a culture war against some of the most marginalised people in society. And Scotland's democracy is simply collateral damage.
This is simply about protecting UK-wide legislation, about ensuring the safety of women and children. This is not about the devolution settlement. I would urge the honourable gentleman and his party to consider engaging with the UK government on this bill, as we did before the legislation passed, so that we can find a constructive way forward in the interest of the people of Scotland and the United Kingdom.
Now, this has been an uncomfortable topic this week for Labour. Anna Sarwar, of course, and the majority of Scottish Labour MSPs voted to back the bill at Holyrood. Sir Keir Starmer gave interviews where he expressed concerns about some aspects of it. Well, today, Anna Sarwar, who couldn't be found at Holyrood yesterday, broke his silence on all this. He hit out at the UK government, saying using Section 35 of the Scotland Act to block this was, in his words, the wrong approach. But he says Labour won't oppose it here because they don't want to be drawn into a constitutional fight.
I think the Tories have made a decision that it suits them to make this a constitutional fight, that it suits them to make this a culture war issue, partly for what's happening in Scottish politics, but also because I think they want to fight a culture war election come the next general election. And the people that are going to miss out on that are the trans community, who face prejudice every single day, and women who have legitimate concerns about protection in single-sex spaces.
Well, you can find legal opinion to back up both sides of this row. It does seem inevitable it will end up in the courts, and that will be a lengthy process.
Indeed. All right, Catherine, thanks very much for that. Now, other stories, and a third child under the age of 10 has died with strep A in Scotland. Cases of the infection, which causes scarlet fever, have soared this winter but are now starting to drop. Health officials say most respond well to antibiotics but are reminding parents to see a doctor if they have concerns.
The Deputy First Minister has refused to say the latest payments to Ferguson Marine for the 2 new Calmac ferries will be the last. John Swinney has confirmed an extra £15 million to help fund the completion of the vessels.
And snow and ice are continuing to cause disruption across the north of Scotland. A yellow weather warning is in place for the Highlands and North East, as well as Orkney and Shetland. More than 100 schools and nurseries were closed. The highest recorded snowfall last night was near Garve, which had 34 centimetres. Now, wolf whistling, catcalling and unsolicited sexual comments are widely considered as things of the past. Yet in Scotland, there are still no specific legal consequences for such actions.
A group of campaigners are trying to change that by calling for public sexual harassment to be made illegal. They hope this will deter people from harassing others and make women feel safer in public spaces. Hannah Brown has more.
Did you really just say that to me in this busy space?
Sally was waiting at a bus stop when a man whispered inappropriate remarks in her ear.
It's just that feeling where you just want to cry, you feel so humiliated, but at the same time you think, did that happen? Like, you'd start second guessing yourself, and then he came up to me again and was saying just really revolting things about how I look and what he wants to do to me.
That experience led Sally to take action when she realised there was no law to protect her. She teamed up with Alice to call for public sexual harassment to be made illegal in Scotland.
So many women everywhere have a similar story, so many stories, a whole backlog of stories of their experiences of being publicly sexually harassed. We know that 97% of women between 18 and 24 have been sexually harassed in public. What we want the legislation to look like is an education-based approach. We're not looking for incarceration or for penal methods to sort of remedy or moderate this behaviour.
Public sexual harassment is already an offence in France, Belgium and Portugal, and support is growing for Scotland to follow suit.
The campaign follows the misogyny report headed by Baroness Helena Kennedy last year. This report recommends making actions fuelled by misogyny a criminal offence.
I know the government's looking at how that's implemented into legislation, but I think there's an onus on all politicians and all parliamentarians to make sure that recommendations of the report are carried forward.
The Scottish Government wants to introduce a misogyny and criminal justice bill in the next couple of years. But Sally and Alice want to see action much sooner than that. Hannah Brown, STV News, Edinburgh.
A derelict sports pitch near Motherwell Football Club has been transformed into a community base for support groups after the club realised many supporters were struggling with their mental health.
It comes as the government invests £27 million in community projects to support people from disadvantaged areas. Caroline Lewis reports.
A typical morning kickabout, but one that could save a life. And for Tony, that's exactly what it did. The pandemic took a toll on his mental health, leaving him with social anxiety so bad he couldn't leave the house. But football has provided a path back into society.
Well, firstly, feeling part of a team again. I think for us all, you definitely miss that. Part of a group, stuff you've got in common with, but for all different walks of life as well.
In 2018, the club lost 12 supporters to suicide. They realised they needed to step in, transforming this once derelict pitch into a community space for people at risk.
It's going to allow us to provide much more support, much more for local people to get them back involved, reintegrated into society, providing the dedicated support services that people need to help them get through it, to see that there is a way out at the other side.
It's one of 23 projects given funding to address issues around poverty, addiction and suicide in disadvantaged communities.
Communities have the best understanding of the challenges and problems they face, and they're best placed to find solutions. And particularly with that partnership approach that community organisations such as this take, means that people can get plugged into other services as well. So this, for a lot of people, can just be the start of a journey.
And for some, that journey starts with a pitch, a ball and some friends. Caroline Lewis, STV News.
A sit-in protest is underway at flats in Glasgow's Maryhill, where people are trying to halt their homes' possible demolition. Housing association the Wheatley Group is planning to clear 4 blocks at Winford. Residents say the flats should be refurbished instead of destroyed. Vanessa Tuff has more.
These flats are a well-known landmark in Maryhill, but the Housing Association have plans to demolish them.
We're very keen that we retain these blocks. We understand that they can be retrofitted, which means that they can be renovated to be brought up to what they call the net zero standard. So essentially the tenants wouldn't even have to pay for heating. And that can be done as cheaply as blowing them up and starting again and building half as many houses.
Despite the demolition being in the early stages of the planning process, many living here have already been rehomed.
I feel it's terrible because see if they knock down all these flats, then it's going to be pandemonium for many years up here. There'll be dust everywhere, there'll be like concrete getting crushed, the noise pollution up here will be unbelievable.
Some are refusing to leave by staging an occupation. 6 people have been arrested and charged with vandalism offences over the protest.
We were encouraging the residents of the buildings to not leave until they were given a deal that suited them. We don't want people being pressured to move to other parts of the city or leave areas where they grew up and where they're comfortable, just for the sake of Wheatley being able to pull these buildings down.
They're remarkable, right? Architecturally remarkable, very refined buildings, unlike any other residential environment in the whole of the west of Scotland.
Those in favour of keeping the flats fear they'd be an historical loss, which would also have an environmental impact.
If Glasgow is actually true to the trumpeting that it did during COP26 about retrofitting buildings rather than demolishing them, they should be thinking of that as a priority.
The Wheatley Group say the vast majority of tenants in Wynford are overwhelmingly in favour of the £73 million regeneration and that they're doing everything possible to support tenants moving out of the blocks. Residents worry it'll only be a matter of time before these blocks come down. Vanessa Taff, STV News, Maryhill.
Other stories in the West, and a 15-year-old boy has been arrested and charged after a baby girl was hit in the head by a brick thrown through a bus window. It happened in Battlefield Road on the south side of Glasgow last Tuesday evening. The 17-month-old child was unharmed in the incident. A report will be submitted to the Children's Reporter and inquiries are ongoing. Glaswegians are being invited to voice their opinions on the future of the city's main shopping streets. Residents will be able to discuss the redevelopment of Buchanan, Sauchiehall and Argyll Streets, an area known as the Golden Z. An Ideas Day will be held next week to explore the impact of changing retail within the city. Renfrewshire Council says Paisley Town Hall will reopen to the public in the summer. It's been closed for more than 5 years for a £22 million makeover, which was delayed because of the pandemic. Next year should also see the upgrade of the town's arts centre and the opening of Paisley Museum. Well, let's get a forecast on what's coming up in the weather forecast. Here's Philip.
Thank you, John. Well, as we head towards the weekend, we are seeing the return of milder conditions moving in across western parts. I'll have more later on with your full forecast.
All right, it's time for sport.
And our focus tonight is on the Scottish Premiership. Rahman is at Rugby Park in Kilmarnock.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
A very good evening. It's a big night in the Scottish Premiership here at Rugby Park. It's Kilmarnock against Rangers. Derek McInnes's side ran Celtic very close in their League Cup semi-final match at the weekend, and his side can move from second bottom to 8th with a win or a draw tonight. As for Rangers, they're in good form ahead of this one. They've won 6 out of the last 7 games.
What we did right on Saturday, we need to do again. You know, the 1v1 defending, the positioning, our concentration, our organisation in and out of possession, try to carry a threat. You know, we tried to make sure we're defensively sound for the majority of Saturday, but still carry a threat, and that's when you play against the better teams, that's what you need to try and do.
They've beaten every team that I've beaten or we've beaten since I've come back in, so game on, should be a good game. We need to go for 3 points, not 1, and I'm sure they're feeling the same.
Well, Kilmarnock against Rangers is one of 4 games in the Premiership tonight at Celtic Park. It's Celtic against St Mirren, and Jamie Bothwick is there for us. Jamie.
Yes, Rahman, Celtic looking to keep up the pace at the top of the Premiership tonight when they welcome a St Mirren side sitting in 6th and eyeing a run at European qualification. Ange Postecoglou welcomes back Sead Haksabanovic and Anthony Ralston to his squad for this one. Stephen Robinson has Charles Dunn and Ethan Erihon available after suspension. The Buddies inflicted Celtic's only defeat of the campaign on them earlier this season, but Postecoglou insists that tonight isn't about revenge.
You know, if you need sort of revenge as a motivator, well, you know what, go and lose every second game and you'll be great. But that's not how it works, particularly here. We're very motivated because we're representing this football club. We're in a strong position in the league and we want to continue, our consistency in performance and results. That's our motivation.
We've proved we can compete with Celtic. We've proved we can compete with the best teams in the country. So we go with respect, of course, for a very good side and a top manager, but we go with belief as well.
Yes, St Mirren in good form, but do they have enough about them to cause what would be a big upset here this evening? And after playing on that Hampden pitch at the weekend, Ange Postecoglou could make a number of changes to his lineup.
Jamie at Celtic Park, thanks very much for that. Well, Hearts will be aiming to consolidate 3rd spot when they take on Aberdeen. Chris Harvey is at Tynecastle.
Well, Hearts' big aim this season is to ensure European football, and tonight could be a vital 90 minutes towards that. They're 4 points clear in third place, and a victory tonight will put a large dent in Aberdeen's own ambitions of finishing best of the rest. Well, Andy Halliday has a head knock and he is out. Cammy Devlin likely to come in his place in an otherwise unchanged Hearts lineup.
We were up there early in the season and we got beat 2-0, and rightly so. I thought Aberdeen played very well that day and made it difficult for us. So, no matter what's happened at the weekend there with them, it's still coming into a huge game and it'll be a full house there. So it's going to be a tough game, but it's one that we're very much looking forward to.
I think it could be a really, really good game. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. I think there's two very good teams going at it, and Hearts are sitting in third place in the table at the moment. They've been on a very good run of form of late, and obviously we want to get back into that position ourselves.
Well, Aberdeen manager Jim Goodwin brings his Dons team down here tonight, looking to get over the disappointment of that defeat against Rangers on Sunday. Kick-off here at Tynecastle is 7:45.
Well, in the other game tonight, Livy take on Dundee United, and Livy will be aiming to record their third win in a row. And we've just got some football news into us, and Swansea City say they have rejected a bid from Rangers for winger Morgan Whittaker. OK, let's give you some tennis news now, and Cameron Norrie is through to the third round of the Australian Open. Norrie defeated Constant Lestian in 4 sets to set up a match against Jiri Lehecki. And Andy Murray is back in action tomorrow after his epic win yesterday. I'll see you again tomorrow.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Let's get more on that weather from Philip.
Things are hotting up. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello, good evening. Well, let's start tonight by taking a look back at yesterday's extremes, and we can see it was another fairly cold day. We reached a maximum high of only 5.3 degrees Celsius. Overnight we dropped to a low of minus 2.2, and as of 8 a.m. this morning, Loch Liscarnoch across the far north was recording 34 centimetres of lying snow. Back to just now though, and as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, for many of us it's remaining largely dry with clear skies. That will lead to a widespread frost. Our wind direction changes to a westerly though, so some of those snow showers will start to feed in across parts of Argyll and Bute, Renfrewshire, Ayrshire and Lanarkshire overnight, with lows tonight of around minus 3 or minus 4 degrees Celsius. Looking ahead to tomorrow, a cold, frosty start to the day, but through the course of the afternoon it is remaining largely dry, and we will see plenty of sunny spells on offer. Temperature-wise, reaching highs of around 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, so similar to what we saw today. Looking ahead to Friday now, and we'll start to see this large ridge of high pressure building across the country. That will be in charge of our weather, keeping things mostly fine and dry. We'll see plenty of sunshine on offer, but despite the sunshine, it will remain quite chilly. Temperatures reaching highs of around 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. If we look out to the west though, we'll start to see this next frontal system approaching. That moves through Friday into Saturday, and it will bring with it milder conditions, but also some rain for the weekend. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, Scotland's Olympic gold medal winning curlers were among notable Scots awarded royal honours at Holyrood Palace. Princess Anne bestowed the titles.
Awards went to people from science, sport and the only police officer on one remote Scottish island. Laura Alderman has been meeting those receiving royal recognition.
The highest honour for Scotland's highest ranking officer. Chief Constable Ian Livingston was knighted by the Princess Royal in an investiture ceremony at Holyrood Palace today.
We've had the real honour to see a lot of the royal family this year in Scotland through the death of Her Majesty the Queen, and that close connection between the people of Scotland, the police service of Scotland and the royal family, I think is a real one and a genuine one, so it's been a lovely day.
Also in attendance and topping up their silverware, Scotland's Olympic curling stars were awarded MBEs.
A year ago we were about to go in a bubble we're heading out to Olympics, so I can't believe that's been a year already. It's been so quick, and we've done so many amazing things in the back of it and spent a lot of good times together, and receiving this and doing it Millie today has been really special.
It's really nice to get it in Scotland, and Princess Anne was lovely, felt really welcoming and just a really special day.
Goalkeeping legend Alan Rough was made an MBE for services to football.
And football means Partick Thistle to me. I was there as a 14-year-old and I'm still there just now, so it's a great day for everybody associated with the club, I hope as well.
But these medals are not just for the big names. Tyree's lone police officer received the Queen's Police Medal.
One occasion, wow. It's a highlight to my career. It's fabulous.
All smiles and selfies, celebrating some outstanding Scots. Laura Alderman, STV News at Holyrood Palace.
Oh, and congratulations to every single one of them. Well, that's it from us.
Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your night. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.